Welcome to the introduction to EDLD 5013. I am Virginia Hampton, and I am the lecturer for the Belmopon station.
And I'm Dr. Christopher DeShield, and I'm the lecturer at the Orange Walk version of the course. But we hope to exchange places so that the entire cohort can experience both lecturers, right? So,
in some fashion. And this introductory lecture is actually not going to be a lecture, but more of a conversation.
a dialogue. We thought we could share some of our experiences with writing. We probably have different experiences to draw on, and I think many writers and scholars, academics, probably have their own, kind of idiosyncratic ways of approaching research and writing. So it is probably useful for us to share our own experiences, in addition to engaging with some of the material that we encounter in the textbook, which includes a whole array of scholars, right? And they share their own experiences with writing as well. And so maybe we could start off by looking at the other textbook that we have, because your name actually appears on the cover of the book.
Yes, it does.
But what I understand is that you weren't part of the original research group, the group that was conducting research on the book.
Right.
But you had a big hand in the writing of the text, right? Or would you just maybe explain your role in producing that work?
I was actually asked to be the developmental editor for this study, to turn it from a study, which was about this thick, into a book, which is about this thick, that really would be useful for the kinds of people who were even interviewed in the book, including the police department, teachers, people in the political arena around the issues of male violence, anyone really who was interested in reading. And I recently found out there's actually a book club in Belize City that is reading the book right now. And so, we wanted ordinary people to be able to read the study, because it's about Belize, and there haven't been a lot of studies done about violence in Belize. And so my job was really to take a lot of data and a lot of also qualitative analysis, and somehow to make it more pedestrian in a way. Because it's very academic. The study is very academic, the methodology is very academic, but it needed to be the kind of thing that your average person could read.
So yeah, it's almost like, so you're making the book kind of palatable to different audiences.
Right.
The book can definitely be appreciated by scholars and university lecturers and students, such as ours, right? But also for your person on the street that is interested in education in the country, also crime is one of the topics of discussion. Yeah, I know there's a book club. I know there was another group that was concerned especially about violence on the south side of Belize. They're reading it, and they're from diverse backgrounds, right? Different backgrounds. So the collection of papers that you used to edit to the book, those papers were in what form? This is like raw information, or is it something that might be published in another setting?
So in another setting or form, Dr. Gale would have actually did go ahead and publish it sort of free online as a study.
Oh, okay.
Right. So you can actually go online and find the study. It's a PDF. I don't think he submitted it for publication as a manuscript anywhere else, but he did submit it to Ebola. And what I did was, basically, we looked at some of the data and tried to figure out how to really turn this study into more of a narrative. Right? And so I would say that took a bit, and so basically I ended up reading the manuscript of this study about 4 times before I really got a sense of it. Because I'm not an anthropologist, I'm not a social scientist at all, so I needed to even understand the difference in the way that researchers in social sciences conduct research and the whole idea of methodology of qualitative and quantitative.
Yeah. And
mixed mode, right? So I had to get all of that under my belt, and then at the same time, I had some ideas because of my own experience of living in places where young men sometimes either are victims of police violence or of, even more likely, of violence that's perpetrated against each other. And I've lived in a few neighborhoods where that's true, and I'm also African American, and that's something that we have a lot of conversations about. So it resonated with me. And one thing also that I noticed that was really important, I thought, to the study was just how much what Dr. Gale calls the human ecology of any young person's existence influences to a great degree how they're going to interact in terms of social participation and how much violence is in their lives is going to be replicated elsewhere, right? And so I noticed that one of the things that was really important about this study was understanding that these children are hungry, literally and figuratively. And so if it had just been up to me, that probably would have been the subtitle of the book, something having to do with hunger, like gotta eat or something like that, because it was just so, I could feel it. I could feel that hunger for food, but also hunger for justice and some sense that people care about them, which is, I think.
So, I think it's a good idea to talk about our own writing practices and some of the difficulties that we face, and some of the strategies that we take to overcome those difficulties. So what about the writing process for you? What are some of the difficulties that you regularly encounter with writing, and how do you kind of overcome those difficulties?
My greatest challenge at the moment is actually making the time to write and having the discipline to make sure that I stick to my writing when I'm supposed to. And it's some balance of getting the work done and not kicking myself when I don't get it done. What I found to be useful was what we've been using in our writing and research, which is the 20-minute slots or 25-minute slots of writing with a 5-minute break. And sometimes if I do a couple of those, I can do longer bits of writing. And also the acceptance of anything that gets you closer to the writing, to finishing, is writing. So I don't beat myself up about, well, I'm reading and I'm not writing, or I'm doing research and I'm taking notes, or I'm actually transcribing notes, which is what I do as part of my process, or I'm organizing. Like if there's, if my files are messy, like that. Actually, all of that, it might seem like you're stalling,
Yes.
but it's a good way to stall because it actually helps you get back to it. And so, the point I want to get at usually when I'm working on a project is that I can't wait to get back to it. And so the way that I've been trying to do that is just to do my 20 minutes a day, if I can, in the morning before I go to work. And if I can't, then to try and get about the same amount of time in at some point before I go to bed. And it's actually a good way for me to go to sleep, to get rid of all that stuff that's in my head. So that's one way. The other challenge I have is starting a project. Luckily, I'm not working on any projects right now that I haven't already started. But one of the ways I start when I'm starting a new writing project is that I will try to write it just as if I were writing a letter to somebody, or I were doing a journal entry or something like that, and I take the pressure off of myself to make it sound all academic-y. And I just go, and I approach it in that pedestrian kind of way again.
Is it kind of like free writing that you're doing? Like,
Sometimes just notes. I actually have a whole briefcase full of what the project that I'm working on right now
literal
that I'd like to
briefcase?
show my students. Yeah, I just pull all the stuff out that I'm working on. I use rolls of paper sometimes to cut and paste different parts of my paper on that so I can make better outlines. I'm one of those people that can't really make an outline until I've written something. And so all of those things help me. I just need those kinds of strategies to keep me going, because once the writer's block sets in, then you really have to be creative about how you continue going. So, and yeah, we were looking at your CV because that was part of the PowerPoint we had.
Yeah.
Right. So we noticed that you had a number of articles published, and so yeah, how do you go about beginning a manuscript, and what do you do when you get blockage? How do you keep going?
Well, I have a similar experience in difficulties really getting to the writing.
You got kids.
Yes, and so in the same PowerPoint, I think that the class saw, there was a little cartoon that I stumbled on.
Yes, that was great.
Getting ready, what you need to write, and one of them was locking the door, keeping the kids barred out, natural lighting, ambient tunes, I think it was, right? Getting rid of all the other work, and then the last frame or panel was just that internal motivation. So
yes,
that's very difficult to even in the presence of all these distractions, right? To focus on the writing. So, like you said, that practice of that Pomodoro technique that we've recently been using in our research writing group, very helpful. I find that it's difficult to actually get to the page and start and write, but once I'm there, it's a nice feeling, right, that you get when you're writing, because I actually enjoy writing, crafting sentences. I change things around, and sometimes I'm working at such a fine level when maybe I should be planning it out more, but that's how I approach writing tasks. Sometimes I spend such a long amount of time developing an introduction and just trying to make it sound right, so it might be a little bit of a perfectionist in me, which is not a good thing in some respects, because you want to kind of get it out there. So sometimes I do use those free writing techniques. But for the publications that were in that CV that was in the PowerPoint, those were divided into two types. So we had some that were academic publications that published in peer review places or book chapters, and the others were kind of pedagogical publications that producing materials for students to use.
Yes, okay.
And a lot of the pedagogical ones, there was actually a monetary incentive to produce. So that's very helpful. Yes. If you're getting paid to do the writing, it actually helps you write.
Because you also have a deadline.
There's also a deadline attached to it, and the longer you take, the less money you're making. The quicker you can churn it out. If it's contract work, you get that.
That's right.
So that was very helpful for getting things done. A lot of those publications that were there were done while I was doing my thesis for a PhD, and that was a real thing to manage too, because on one hand you're doing writing that you get paid for, on the other hand you've got to finish your thesis.
That's right.
So that's a difficulty that you have to think about. But those kinds of incentives, money is one, so you can get by. But also just the discipline to sit down is useful. So those kind of strategies I find good to develop, and I think habits are important to form.
Yes.
The other little cartoon that we had in that PowerPoint was the little tweet that I had given them from some writer who said her favorite part of the writing was the little time just after the place was clean, but just before she started unnecessarily baking bread.
Yes.
And so that's a feeling that I think many people encounter. I often clean my space. Sometimes I go outside and chop grass, and I find that so satisfying. When there's a big project and it's really procrastination is what's happening there. But you're also thinking about the project, and it's not a complete waste.
Right. And sometimes you need that that break, if you're doing a lot
Yes.
of writing, you actually need to go do something else, especially if you have a block. And it's best to do something that you actually enjoy, I find. Take a walk or chop the grass,
Yes.
clean the bathroom.
But I think it needs to be intentional,
Yes.
right? Those breaks.
Right.